police officer pointed his gun at a black woman, not knowing she was an army officer, and lost his job within minutes. What happened next? Justice didn't stay silent. The city was a blend of sounds: cars speeding by, the murmur of conversations, and the clinking of traffic signals. On one of the busiest streets, in broad daylight, an encounter took place that would change the fate of several lives. Maya walked along the sidewalk, her gaze fixed ahead, as she always did. Her police uniform clearly identified her as part of the authority, but the sun, high in the sky, cast a blinding light that made it hard to see details from a distance. Maya had always been strong, confident, but lately she felt tired. The stress of daily life and the heavy workload had started to weigh more than ever. Nevertheless, her mind was still alert, as she had been taught in her training. From across the street, a police car suddenly stopped. The sound of the doors opening was the first thing that caught her attention. It was an official vehicle, and the two officers inside seemed not to have noticed her yet. However, something about the way the officer stepped out and quickly walked toward her made Maya tense. There was nothing more alarming to her than that quick pace, as if he were following a protocol she didn't fully understand. The officer, a middle-aged man with an impassive face, approached aggressively, his hand firmly gripping his gun's handle. Maya stopped immediately, feeling the air thicken, as if a storm was about to break. The officer looked her up and down, his gaze fixed as if she were a threat. She didn't understand what was happening, but her training reflexes didn't let her hesitate. She too tensed up, bracing for any movement. "Do you have something to hide?" the officer growled, with no further explanation. His voice was harsh, accusatory. He didn't seem interested in opening a dialogue. Maya, visibly surprised, slowly raised her hands, her face showing a mix of disbelief and confusion. "I have nothing to hide. I'm just passing by. What's going on?" she replied calmly, maintaining the posture she had learned during years of service. But the officer didn't listen. "You're too young to be so bold. You know I can't let you go without a convincing reason," he said, getting even closer and pointing his gun at her, a gesture brimming with pure tension. Maya felt the cold steel of the barrel against her chest, and a shiver ran down her spine. The feeling of humiliation struck her like lightning, a corrosive emotion that made her seethe inside. She couldn't understand why the situation had escalated this way. He hadn't even checked who she was. Why was a police officer, with all the training he was supposed to have, acting this way without questioning anything else? "What the hell are you doing?" Maya exclaimed, raising her voice for the first time, with the rage building in her chest. "I'm an army officer. I'm an authority here, just like you." But the officer didn't react. Instead of stepping back, he tightened his grip on his gun even more. Her disbelief turned into blind anger. The situation was surreal, full of tension and obvious racism, something Maya had suffered many times in her life but hadn't expected to face right there, in front of a fellow officer. She could feel her heart pounding, driven by the fury of that injustice. She knew the color of her skin had been enough for the officer not to see her as an equal, but as a threat. The difference was that Maya wasn't going to be intimidated. However, something changed. In the blink of an eye, the patrol car's lights started flashing, and the sound of a whistle broke the silence. In a flash, the police car that had stopped moved backward, and two more officers arrived quickly. The truth was beginning to come to light. But the tension wasn't over yet. She looked at the officer with disdain, hoping his colleagues would notice what had happened. And when the truth finally came out, the officer who had pointed his gun at Maya was off duty. The chain of command didn't hesitate to make a decision. Racism would not be tolerated. The system didn't forgive, and he had learned it the hard way. Maya, for her part, took a deep breath, though the rage still burned inside her. This confrontation wouldn't be the last. The scene in front of the officer pointing his gun at Maya was at a boiling point. The other two officers who arrived quickly intervened, one of them immediately recognizing Maya as an army officer. His face turned serious as he realized the gravity of the situation. The other, younger officer, seemed completely bewildered, while the first one immediately began speaking with the officer who had assaulted Maya. "What the hell have you done?" "Harris!" shouted the senior officer. His voice was filled with reproach, sharp and full of distrust. Maya was still tense, but the nerves were slowly dissipating, replaced by a deep exhaustion. However, the injustice still burned in her chest. Officer Harris, the man who had pointed the gun at Maya, seemed somewhat confused, but at the same time stubborn, unable to comprehend the mistake he had made. "It's not what it seems," he murmured, although his words didn't convince anyone. "She approached me aggressively. She was ready to attack me." Maya stepped forward, her voice firm and sharp. "Aggressive? Just because I'm a black woman, you saw me as a threat?" "No, Harris. I was the one who feared for her life when you pointed your weapon at me. You're a racist, and everyone will know it." The other two officers didn't speak for a few seconds, processing what had happened. Finally, the younger of the two officers, after a long silence, looked at his partner Harris and then at Maya. "This can't be left like this. We can't allow these mistakes to keep happening." "No one is above the law," the young officer said, his words filled with firmness. The senior officer, after a few more seconds of tense silence, nodded. "You're right. We're reporting this immediately. And you, Harris, come with us." With disconcerting speed, Officer Harris was taken away from the scene and led to the patrol car. Maya watched them, the knot in her stomach starting to loosen as everything became clearer. But justice wouldn't come immediately. She knew this was only the first step, and a long process awaited her. The following days were a whirlwind of calls, reports, and interviews. Harris was immediately suspended while the investigation took place. The evidence was irrefutable. Maya's report had made it clear that his behavior had been racist and completely unacceptable. The security camera footage, which had recorded the entire incident, left no room for doubt. The officer had acted excessively, drawing his weapon in an intimidating manner without any reason. Meanwhile, Maya faced a daily barrage of questions, often uncomfortable, but she also found support in other officers who understood the real weight of what had happened. Despite what she had lived through, Maya didn't let herself be defeated by hatred or rage. What had happened was painful, but it also gave her an opportunity to raise her voice for those who couldn't. The judicial process was long, but finally, the truth came to light. Harris was fired from the police force and faced charges for abuse of power, racism, and negligence in fulfilling his duties. Karma had caught up with the officer in a brutal way, and the news of his dismissal spread quickly on social media. The man who had once worn the uniform with pride was now known for his ignorance and prejudice. Maya didn't celebrate Harris's downfall. She didn't need to. For her, the real victory was seeing how, step by step, the system was starting to do the right thing, even if it was late. She knew her fight hadn't been in vain. Every word, every testimony of support, every public statement from those who joined her cause showed her that the fight against racism, although difficult, could gain ground. What mattered to Maya was the lesson. Justice existed, but it wasn't something that fell from the sky. It was something that was built day by day, with every act of bravery, with every moment of confrontation, with every time someone raised their voice against injustice. And while her heart continued to heal, she knew that her story was not just a personal victory. It was a reminder to everyone that, at the end of the day, racism could not go unpunished. In her chest, the emptiness gave way to something greater, a new determination. She would keep fighting.